Hey everyone, welcome. Today, we're unpacking a truly incredible real-life story coming to us straight from a small village in Nepal. It's one of those narratives that will completely reframe your discussions today about what it actually means to step up when life gets impossibly hard. We're going to dive into the story of a young girl named Sarita, and we'll look at how she navigated just a completely heartbreaking situation with profound resilience. Throughout this explainer, we're really focusing on two big things: what true personal responsibility looks like in action, and how we can genuinely overcome the deepest hardships that life throws our way. I promise you, by the time we wrap this up, your perspective on duty and perseverance is going to be challenged in the best way possible. Okay, let's dive into this. I want you to put yourself in this scenario for a second. Imagine you're just going about your normal, everyday life, dealing with typical schoolwork, hanging out with friends, all the usual stuff. Then, literally overnight, the heaviest adult responsibilities you can possibly imagine are dropped squarely onto your shoulders. No warning, no prep time whatsoever. How would you react? Would you freeze up? Complain? Or would you find a way to adapt? Well, this isn't just some hypothetical thought experiment. This was the absolute reality for the subject of our explainer today. Part 1. An unexpected tragedy. You see, to really grasp Sarita's courage, we first have to look at the sudden, heartbreaking event that completely fractured her family without any warning. 7. At the time of this immense family tragedy, Sarita was only in the 7th grade. She was literally just a child herself. Think back to the typical concerns of a 7th grader: homework, friendships, kind of just figuring out how to grow up, right? She was at an age where she should have been the one receiving guidance and protection from her parents. Instead, the sudden loss of her mother thrust her instantly into a world of heavy, complex adult burdens that, honestly, most grown-ups would struggle to process. And then, 3. 3 months old. That is how old Sarita's baby brother was when their mom passed away. I mean, a 3-month-old infant is entirely 100% dependent on constant care just for sheer survival. The source material poignantly notes that this tiny baby was suddenly deprived of his mother's love and vital care. And the stark contrast between these two numbers, a 7th grader and a 3-month-old, it really highlights the absolute vulnerability of this family in the wake of the tragedy. So, with their mom gone, the entire burden of just keeping the family fed and alive shifted completely to the father. The text outlines his brutal reality. To cover the household expenses and ensure they survived, he had to travel away from the village to the district headquarters to do manual wage labor. And consider his schedule for a second. Leaving early in the morning at dawn and not getting back until the evening. This meant the father physically could not be at home during the day. It created this massive immediate crisis. Who on earth was going to watch a helpless 3-month-old baby? Which brings us to part 2, an impossible choice. Sarita is now standing at this devastating crossroads, facing a dilemma that, frankly, no child should ever have to resolve. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how starkly it lays out her options, and they are both terrible. On one hand, she could abandon her education completely to stay home as a full-time caregiver. She loves school, she really didn't want to leave her studies, but it seemed like the only logical way to keep her brother safe. On the other hand, she could continue her schooling, but that would mean leaving a 3-month-old infant entirely alone at home all day long, which is a physical impossibility. A baby cannot survive that. So the world basically expected her to just give up on her future. But Sarita? She flat out refused to accept these as her only two options. Part 3. Courage in action. Sarita didn't just accept defeat or let this tragedy dictate the end of her education. Let's look at the highly unconventional solution she engineered to solve this impossible problem. Let's move to and see how this builds. Here became her actual daily reality. As her father headed out for his grueling labor, Sarita would carefully wrap her tiny baby brother up in cloth. She literally carried him in her arms all the way to school and right into her 7th grade classroom. It was this incredible balancing act, keeping him close, soothing him in her lap the absolute second he cried, and then immediately shifting her focus right back to her studies. She became a mother and a student simultaneously, right there within the 4 walls of a middle school classroom. You can just imagine what a profound sight this must have been. Picture it, a 7th grader holding a crying infant, desperately trying to take notes and pay attention to the teacher. Our source material points out that witnessing her visible, daily struggle deeply moved her teachers and her friends. It brought them to tears. But, and this is key, it didn't just inspire pity, it inspired active community support. Her whole school environment transformed. Her teachers and classmates stepped up and helped her in whatever ways they could, totally moved by her unwavering determination to not give up on her education or her brother. Part 4. Lessons in Responsibility. Having looked at the events chronologically, we need to step back and analyze what this actually means for our first major discussion theme today. Because Sarita's story really challenges our comfortable, everyday definitions of what it means to be responsible. So, the crucial point is captured beautifully in this translated excerpt from the source text. At a young age, she fulfilled a mother's love, a sister's duty, and a good student's responsibility. I really want you to let that sink in for a moment. True responsibility isn't just about doing the bare minimum of what's asked of you, right? It's about recognizing the gaps, even massive, completely unfair gaps, and stepping right into them with love and duty. She didn't just do one thing well, she carried the weight of 3 distinct, heavily demanding roles on her young shoulders. Her personal responsibility manifested in 3 incredibly difficult ways all at once. First, she was physically nurturing a highly dependent infant, ensuring his survival and providing that missing motherly love. At the exact same time, she was maintaining her intellectual focus, not allowing her mind to just detach from her future and her 7th grade education. But perhaps most importantly, she completely refused to use a valid tragedy as an excuse to just quit. It would have been so easy, and honestly completely understandable for her to just drop out of school. But true responsibility, she showed us, is finding a way forward when giving up is literally the easiest option on the table. Which brings us to part 5, overcoming our hardships. This is the second vital theme for your discussion today. Look, we all face adversity. Sometimes it's small, everyday stuff, and sometimes it's catastrophic, like losing a parent. The question isn't whether we're going to face hardship, it's how that hardship will shape us once it arrives. Will it break us down, or will it build us up? And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate takeaway here. This unimaginably difficult situation did not weaken Sarita. The tragedy didn't crush her spirit. Instead, the intense pressure of the hardship actually forged her. It actively made her stronger. It made her more responsible, and it revealed an incredible, proactive courage. Hardship, in this story at least, acted as a powerful catalyst for profound personal growth, proving that human resilience can totally thrive even in the absolute darkest of circumstances. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to take into your discussions. We've just seen what Sarita did when her responsibilities doubled literally overnight. Now look at your own lives. Take a hard look at the challenges you're currently facing, the excuses you might be making, or the responsibilities you might be kind of avoiding right now. How can you apply Sarita's level of responsibility to your own personal challenges? Think about that as you dig into these themes today. Thank you so much for joining me. Keep learning, and I'll see you next time.